Hello, today I have Declan O'Callaghan from Wojtek joining us on the Business Growth Mindset podcast. Declan's purpose is to support people's growth beyond their wildest imagination. He's a seasoned technology people leader with 25 years experience, working for a large corporate and being an entrepreneur in setting up, leading and delivering in technology and telecommunications companies. He's passionate about people and what they can deliver, always holding himself to high expectations and expects the same from his team. He always strives to deliver for the four most important things in his life: family, staff, customers, and self. In striving for excellence in all of this is sometimes daunting, but the thrill of balance is mesmerizing. Over the last 25 years, he established business teams and units, as well as setting up and growing businesses from scratch. 12 years ago, he set up telecommunications company Wojtek. They deliver landline, high-speed internet, mobility products to thousands of customers around Australia. Wojtek has exceeded shareholder expectation, employs over 30 people, and is a for-purpose organisation. Get comfortable and listen up, because today you will learn about the power of values, what it takes to live by those values, and how to be persistent in the face of change and adversity. Welcome to another episode of the Business Growth Mindset Podcast, Series 3. I'm your host, Christian Livolsi, and I'm incredibly excited to welcome our guest and my friend, Declan O'Callaghan, on the show today. Dex, welcome.
Hey, buddy. Thanks for the invite. Love to be
it's
here.
Awesome. We were just off air, just catching up, chewing the fat. We haven't seen each other in a long time.
Crazy.
I was just saying to Declan, he's looking really good. For a 75-year-old bloke, he is looking really
You
good.
bugger. He nailed me.
And he's also just been telling me how he's about to go off to the Flinders to ride 100 Ks a day for 5 days. And first thing that came out of my mouth was, geez, you're going to lose a lot of weight. And what did you say?
Yeah. Why? We'll make up for it in the evening. We'll be fine. Don't worry about that.
So, mate, listen, it's so good to see you. It's, I always measure my friendships by the connection that I have with someone when I haven't seen them in a long time. And you and I go back
a long time,
like when you were at Vodafone, right? So,
well, you were one of the first guys I met in Adelaide.
That's right.
With your restaurants, and we entertained each other well.
Yeah, and we spent a lot of time together over all the years. And but like everything, it's peaks and troughs. You sometimes in someone's life, then it goes away, and we're just sharing stories about our children. And yours are already 21 and 18, and mine that's 7 and 4 mark, and how quickly they grow up. But why don't rather than me tell the story of all the wonderful things that we know about each other, why don't you tell my audience a little bit about you, but from the place of where you've come from and where you are today, because you really have a very cool story that is inspirational and also very entrepreneurial.
Yeah, thanks, Christian. So again, thank you so much for the opportunity. My world started off very simple. I was 14 years of age. I wanted to play rugby. I wanted to be in the Air Force, and I wanted to be an electrical engineer. And I was completely tunnel focused on that. And by the age of 21, I was an electrical engineer. I was playing rugby, and I was in the Air Force. And I realised quite quickly that I really enjoyed rugby. I thought engineering was probably, I could sell it rather than do it better. And the Air Force and I kind of felt like a bit of a maverick. And I wasn't really into the hierarchical nature of that structure. So I had the opportunity to move to New Zealand to follow my aspiration of playing rugby, hopefully for one day for the All Blacks. When I got to New Zealand, it was very clear and very apparent that my ambition and my ability were somewhat confused. So I realised that wasn't going to be my day job. It wasn't going to be my day job. But I really loved it. I thought it was great. But more importantly for me, I loved New Zealand, and I made that my home. I ventured into the front end of the business quite quickly. So I jumped into sales. At the time, we were selling big software packages. We call them ERP, or Enterprise Resource Planning packages. And that was around about the 98, 99. So when the year 2000 came up, and people were saying the world is going to fall over. We need to upgrade everything. We need to get our softwares up to date. The most important thing for a salesperson to understand was how much paper was in the fax machine, because that's when the orders were coming through. We had a ball. And whether it was right, wrong, or indifferent, there was a lot of people that upgraded their software in the 98, 99, 2000 from there. Around about 2001, a dear friend of mine approached me and said, why don't you come to Australia and run Vodafone Business for us? And I was really taken aback by that. At the time, I was in a software company. We're doing, can you believe it or not, mobile development on Palm Pilots. Now we're going back a while.
Now we're going back. There's O2.
There's the Palm OS. And we were making, do you know when a courier turns up to you and they ask you to sign on the handset? We had the first one in the world in New Zealand with the GPRS, the 2.5G ComStack built into it. So every time I see one of those, I think innovation. I think, that started off on an ambition of ours at the time to actually deliver that. Anyway, that was a sideline point.
That's very cool.
I was sitting there and I saw this transformation from Vodafone in New Zealand when they bought a company called Bell South. And Bell South was kind of a big Columbus, boring organisation. And overnight, it turned red. And it turned red with the Vodafone banner on it. And I think it's fair to say Vodafone New Zealand isn't kind of like Vodafone Australia. Vodafone New Zealand was amazing. And it was really, really powerful company. And I got to know the managing director quite well, a chap by the name of Graham Marr, who was a South Australian. But unfortunately, he's passed away now. And I spoke to him a lot. And I said, what is it, Graham? What is it that actually really changes? What changed from Bell South to Vodafone? And he said, it's really simple. I said, well, mate, that's great. Let me know, please. He said, it's really simple to understand. It's really complex to implement. So I don't understand. And he took me on the journey, and that journey was values. And actually not a value statement on a wall or anything else, but actually understanding people and understanding their drivers, their behaviours, their capabilities, and as a leader, taking them and driving them and supporting them on that journey from there. So I was really inspired by that. So when the opportunity to actually move to Australia and actually live some of that inside of Vodafone, I was like, game on. I'm going to have a crack at that. I did. I did turn around to my wife. I shouldn't say at the time because she's still my wife. But at the time, our daughter Maggie was only 1.
Yeah.
So Barbara in New Zealand, they call it the whānau. The family is all around us. And I'm sitting there and I said, Barb, I've got this great idea. And she goes, what is it now? I said, we're moving to Sydney. And she goes, what do you mean we're moving to Sydney? I said, there's a great opportunity. Go and run Vodafone Business over there. It'd be great. Love it. And she goes, rightio. And as Barb is a highly supportive person, we landed up in Lane Cove in Sydney. And it's fair to say that Barb didn't enjoy herself for probably the first 18 months. I was on a plane 3 weeks of the month, and I was the weekend dad. But come the 18 months, Isaac was then being born. Barb then integrated well into Sydney, and she just loved Sydney. But what I had the auspicious task of doing was actually taking Vodafone on the business journey. So things like the BlackBerry.
Yeah.
So I had the first.
That's how
BlackBerry.
I got my first one through with you. You convinced me to go to the BlackBerries.
Yeah, it was amazing. So I'll never forget the day that I actually held that BlackBerry in my hand and went, this is going to change the world. And it really did.
It was awesome.
The ability to receive emails on your device, wherever you are around the world.
It was also, mate, in Australia. Size.
Ergonomically.
Use 2 fingers same time. Like, you and I both know we were already both heavily in tech. I had O2 before that, and they were kind of the Nokia flip, the big one.
Yeah.
But BlackBerries did it all so well until they released the Storm.
Yeah, it's awful. That store was terrible.
That was a disaster. And it was like, okay, I'm going to an iPhone.
I think, yeah, going back to that point, I think the storm for BlackBerry or Research in Motion was actually the iPhone. And the BlackBerry did not understand that as a business person, we actually also want to behave like a consumer. And that little thing of putting a camera in my device so I can take photographs. Yeah. The guys from Research in Motion, in my opinion, missed that boat. But anyway, so we did that. We had a lot of fun doing that. But for me, again, was actually not just witnessing a values-based journey, but being part of a values-based journey and actually taking a business that, in my view, was kind of broken, and we moved it into a really strong position. We had things in Vodafone, which was LIA, so leadership in action. I know my team actually called it lost in action for me, but never mind, because I was immersed in it. But the essence of being a great leader was firstly understanding yourself. And if you can understand yourself, then you can lead people. If you don't understand yourself, or if you've got a continuous mask on you all the time and you're not authentic, then people instinctively won't believe you. Yes. So we spent a lot of time in that world, and I really enjoyed it. And it's something that's really part of my DNA now. When people start talking values, firstly, my ears pick up, but then it's actually, for me, I call it the value terrorist. Is actually going, do you believe that, or are you just talking BS? Because there is a big difference between it.
And how many people, Declan, do you meet? How many companies you meet that have these glorified vision statements?
Yeah.
And then no one knows them. They don't even follow. No. It's not even like, forget even living them. How many of them? Right? I mean, Jim Collins, and everyone who listens to my podcast knows Jim Collins because I talk about him all the time. He says people first, right? Yeah. Hierarchy is purpose, values, right? Competencies. Like, you got to get those three things right. And it's really great because you keep saying that. I think it's so important. So yeah,
it's tremendous that organisations make a statement about values. It's more important to actually live them. I think it's dangerous that organisations make statements about values but then don't live them, because all of a sudden them as a brand are unauthentic. And then people, whether it's employees, suppliers, customers, competitors, don't believe them, and they will make a decision not to be with them. And competitors who don't believe you can make an argument for people not to use you. Yes. So values are really, really important. So turning point for me was I hung up my hat on business, and I really wanted to understand the consumer side of business. But more importantly for me was actually to embrace a community. So I had the opportunity to come down to South Australia and represent Vodafone here in South Australia. I loved it. I had a ball. We had a great team. The team was actually, when we turned up, it was actually relatively broken. It was quite fragile. It hadn't been led well. And we as a business have made a values-based decision to actually terminate key people within that team to actually move the team along. And within, and I remember a conversation, I won't say the chap's name, I remember a conversation of one of the key people in that team who was highly values aligned, had actually resigned. And I knew that that person was a great person. He'd just been given a bum steer as to what was going on. And there's probably an important point there. Even values-based companies fuck up. And excuse my French there.
Absolutely. No.
It's not about what you do, it's what you do afterwards.
Correct.
And that's the importance around it. So anyway, I remember distinctly having this conversation with this chap, and I said to him, look, buddy, I want you to stay. You've resigned. I will support your resignation, but what I want you to do is stay with me for 6 months. And if I don't deliver on my promises that I'm going to give to you, leave. But when you do leave, I'll make you redundant so you make sure you get a check on the way out. That's my promise. And I distinctly remember, and when we got on board, him and I, we drove that team really, really well. And he came up to me on the 6 months and 1 day, And he said, "You can shove your resignation, I'm staying." And I went, "It's just beautiful." But anyway, we had a ball, and we drove the market really, really well. We had an amazing team. We're still connected now. We still talk to each other. And a decision point came to me, in some respects forced, in some respects, be careful what you ask the universe for, was that when Vodafone merged with Three, they then asked us to move back to Sydney, which we didn't want to do. So I had two choices. I could move back to Sydney or stay in Adelaide, get another job, or really, I could actually start doing and believing and really being accountable for ambition. So that's when we decided to set up our business, Voitech, at that time.
I was going to say, now what year was that, Dex? That was
12 years ago. So 2009. Yeah.
Wow. It's incredible that it's been going that long, right?
It's crazy.
Wow.
So I think it's unfair for me to say that I planned a lot of this while at Vodafone, just in case anybody from Vodafone Legal are listening. So the day I left Vodafone, I put my plan in place for delivering on a business. The business itself, and we'll talk about the business in a moment, the business itself is irrelevant. The business is a connection of people doing things together to get a right output. That's all it is. And if you think about it from an axis perspective, my horizontal is always people. And if you can actually drive, motivate, embrace, empower people to do something, you can do anything. It doesn't matter. But my vertical is technology and telecommunications. And that's just what I'm really passionate about, is, being the humble telephone salesperson that just makes phones ring. That's what we want to do.
Brilliant. It's brilliant. I love the way you always put that.
So we set about Voitech. Voitech in its infancy, voice technology. I could see the ambition of a country to deliver high-speed internet, and also the legacy telephone systems that we have here. People call them telephone systems or PABXs or boxes on walls or pieces of crap. They were getting upgraded. There was a platform for delivery, which, in its initial delivery was the NBN. And we knew that there was growth, significant growth in the market for stuff. So we jumped into it, boots and all. I think it's fair to say that if you've got ambition and drive, listen, but don't take anything to heart. The amount of people that told me not to, the amount of people said, "Oh, yeah, mate, so many of these people fail and don't do this and don't do that." It's just noise. And the road to actual success is paved with people saying no. So if your ambition is to do it, just do it, and work it out. As a great man said, work it out after the order. So just say yes and work it out together from there.
It's like asking for forgiveness after the fact.
Shabom. Yeah. So there's an element for me, and there's some lessons in that element as well. But the blind faith of just knowing that you're going to do something is a really powerful motivator for friends, family, and business. From there, I just knew that it was the right thing to do. So if you can imagine that.
Sorry, I want to say, I think what's really important to our listeners, because we've got a combination of really young people, also older people. This gamble in 2009 was actually far more significant than your.
It was crazy.
Because VoIP phones were not. The technology was there, but the internet side wasn't. We're talking.
Oh my Lord!
We're talking ADSL at this point, and so you had this huge. I mean, you always knew it was going to work. And I think you and I actually spoke about it, guys. I said, I think it's a bloody good idea. It's just how you're going to deal with, and this is 12 years ago, how you're going to deal with the latency in internet. And I think that was always the thing. And you spent, and we'll talk about that, you spent about, a couple of years just dealing with that challenge. It wasn't
very much
about, hey, I can sell you telephone systems and give you access to voicemail at your fingertips and all these extra pre-record. I had so many cool features that you couldn't get from Telstra fixed lines. Right?
Yeah.
Or even these PBB systems, or as you summed it up beautifully, pieces of shit, because there were some phone systems that were just garbage. But I guess we'll talk about that after. But I just want to make people understand this wasn't an easy move.
No.
And you went from a really good career to, if I can, it was challenging for a couple of years because you had to put everything in it. Now it's your money. It's not someone else's money, right?
Correct.
And you did that transition really well to where you are now, that you're a business owner.
Yeah, correct.
That's the big shift here. And a lot of people don't understand that's a big responsibility. Going from a paycheck to then going, you know what, I'm going to go into something that is not fully developed.
Yeah. And it becomes real. For anyone that wants to listen to it, the only way to experience business is going to small business. Corporate is amazing. You can get so many different experiences in corporate, and I wouldn't change it for a moment. But to understand business, go into small business. Right. And if you're surrounded by whether it's mum or dad or your brothers or sisters or whoever, get into that conversation and start understanding what true profit and loss is. I thought I got profit and loss when I was at Voda. When I'm sitting there and people saying, the amount of millions that we're making and everything else, it's great, no drama. It's easy. But when you're sitting there and you get the telephone call to say, mate, we've got payroll tomorrow. That check hasn't cleared from that customer. What do we want to do? And by the way, Mr. ATO is just about to give you a call. Now, that is cash flow management.
And they're very real listeners.
Through on it.
Yeah,
very real.
I think anyone listening, you've got to really value a business owner and an entrepreneur who can be that vulnerable like you just have and really spell it out what it's like. It's those early days for most people, they're not pretty.
No.
They're hard work, And I think one of the things I've always admired about you is your tenacity, right? I saw a rock star when you were at Vodafone, like totally.
Yeah.
When you used to take us to some of the best gigs, F1, because Vodafone sponsored the McLaren
Team Vodafone.
We had
the Clipsal, Robbie Williams.
And I mean it was phenomenal, right? And you then go to give all of that up to then go and do with shit payroll. And a lot of the time, I mean, you've even had clients. And I'm not going to say it, obviously we know each other well, but you've even had clients that you have really big contracts, and these are people with money who then go, "Oh no, we're just not going to pay you for 3 months. We're going to hold your money because we're going to improve our cash flow." And a lot of people don't understand the pressure that creates on people. And it's like, I'm doing this, and you've had to navigate that and come out of the other side, right? And so
it's pretty cool.
I take my hat off. Obviously I've been there too. So but for you, you've been brave the whole time, Dick. And I think that's the real message.
I think there's. So yes, I understand it. I'm not sure I agree. I think the area for me is be true and be vulnerable. They're for me the most important things. So, for instance, at the end of the month, every single month, and we've had around about, what are we now? 120 odd months of doing this. We have a staff meeting and we go through the P&L.
Yeah.
Now, what I'm really pleased about, 134, thank you. What I'm really pleased about is that every member of my staff understands a P&L.
Yeah.
And it's something that they get all the time and get and understand what it means and what we're doing to drive. Now, you've got to be a certain protection about what you tell your staff and how you tell your staff. But you've also got to be vulnerable and let them know exactly what's going on when it's going on. You've got multiple hats to be wearing, of whether you've got your sales hat, you've got your finance hat, you've got your technology hat on. But the number one hat that you always got to keep on the whole time is your people hat. And you can drive such great ambition. And my driver really for me is the 25 staff. They're not 25 people. they're 25 family members that also have 25 families. Yes. And I will not put that at risk. So making sure that they're being looked after, supported, and loved, because then that love will flow backwards.
Yeah.
And it will come in to support the company.
What I love is that you've taken all that people, the LIA stuff, and you've taken all of that knowledge from when you were at Voda to people and carried it through, no matter how difficult business is or when or what, because they give it back to you in spades. But mate, what I want to do is, because I know how much you support other people, why don't you, just for our listeners' sake, tell them a little bit about Wojtek? Because I think everyone might be thinking, hang on, what on earth is the company that you've got now that you've been investing 12 years of your life into? Maybe share that part so they actually get some context.
Yeah. Easy. So Wojtek is a telecommunications company. We've got 3 clear products. So we do landline services for business. So everything attached with 08, 02, 03, etc. All of the telephone systems that you have in a business, we deliver. We then provide high-speed internet services. So everything from NBN to direct fiber, we deliver for business. And lastly, we support Optus mobile phone services for business. So every single bill that sits inside your organization for telecommunications, we can look after. Whether you're a 2-person business or whether you're a 200-person business, we sit there. Now, I could be crude to say we're like Telstra. However, we're smaller and better, in my opinion only. Please don't sue me, Telstra.
I think Telstra may not be listening to our show, but I certainly.
But the 3 substantiators that we always give our customers, we promise that we'll save you on operating costs. We promise that we will give you an abundance of functionality. And lastly, and really importantly, we'll give you the best telecommunications service experience, to the point where there's a KPI on my people that a human being, yes, that's right, a human being in telecommunications will answer your call within 30 seconds of calling us and know who you are and help you.
So no Mara?
No, Mara's gone. So for me, it's actually getting that service element right. Everyone's got a bad story about telco, right? It's an awful industry. Now, what we do is put the people into that industry, and we make it really, really well. So we're a business communications company.
Caveat: Dex put in our phone systems at one of our properties, and the service was second to none. I mean, all right, it does help when your friend owns the business, but we had issues with internet, and you guys would jump in. You're up the road, and I've recommended you guys to other people who love the service. There's stuff that you guys can do with billing and a whole bunch of really cool, exciting things, and so I can actually say hand on heart that, the functionality side, absolutely, there's stuff that you guys can deliver is phenomenal. Yeah, that was the one thing that blew me away.
So we've got 2,500 businesses like yours, smaller and also bigger, that now are being managed by Wojtek in South Australia. Predominantly South Australia, about 80% of business in South Australia.
You started branching out, didn't you? Did you go to Victoria? Yeah, okay.
Yeah, so we're customer-led primarily.
Yeah. So since
but put it in perspective, we've got 1% of the market in South Australia. People keep saying to me, open offices here, open offices there. I said, when we get to 20% in South Australia, then we'll do something.
Yeah. And I think that there's a really powerful message there. It's about focus. Right?
Yeah.
If you start to deviate your attention, and God knows, everyone knows that I've done that before. One business was never enough, go to 15.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden the house just falls apart. But I think that's a really good point. It's the focus. Because in Tony Robbins' words, where focus goes, energy flows. And I think for you,
correct,
it's about that. But, 2,500, I'm pretty sure last time we spoke, when we were talking about numbers, it's almost double in the last 3 years.
Yeah, 100%.
So I'm pretty sure I remember the last time we spoke about numbers, you were at 1,500. So you've almost doubled that. What have you done in the last 3 years to elevate?
I think like everything, Christian, like in business, people always talk about the hockey stick approach, right? So, and the hockey stick doesn't actually start flat; it actually starts up. Because when you go out there, you're on that honeymoon period and everything's great. Everything's really, really, really cool. And then it actually gets harder. It doesn't get easier. It gets harder. And that's when you start putting in your processes, and there's a thing called money that you have to make. There's a thing called ATO compliance, all that stuff. It starts, and then you go through the desert of growth. And then you get to the other end of that desert of growth. You've got really strong process, procedure people, and you've put your products in place. Then you go into that lift curve, and it's creating that cookie cutter approach to your business where every new and existing customer feels they're loved individually. But really what you've done is created a process of cookie cutter to support that growth time and time compounded again.
And that's that scale.
And that's what we've just seen it. Yeah. In a very simple term, people call that scale. And that's what we're doing.
No, I love the way you explain that. I mean, that's very cool because obviously that's what I do for a living is teach people how to scale, how to replicate, automate, and how to grow. But I think that it's very true. A lot of people don't ever talk about that trough that you go through growth. And if you don't actually systematize and prioritize and build,
keep going down.
You'll go down instead of going back up. And
or you'll be an amazing single practitioner.
Yeah, which is nothing wrong with that. If
there's nothing wrong with that.
Your fancy, right?
Yeah.
But, okay, amazing. I'm glad. Now, look, what I want to ask you is, what's the biggest challenge that you're facing right now in your role, and how are you tackling it?
Yeah, good question. My biggest challenge all the time. So I'll be vulnerable again. My biggest challenge was actually sleep, and so I won't tell you about now because hopefully I've cured it or fixed it for the time being. Where I was actually suffering from something that they told me I didn't realise existed called early morning insomnia. So it's that early morning chess game. So you wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning.
The founder's curse, 3 a.m. in the morning.
Yeah, beautiful. Yeah. And I always used to explain to people that it was like being in a car crash every morning at 3 o'clock. The adrenaline just kicks in and you're just completely awake. And people go, right, okay, well, I'm up now. I may as well do something, Then you go on to that caffeine cycle. So you fill up with a cup of coffees, and then you come to lunchtime, you hit the wall, and then all of a sudden you're cloudy, you can't focus, and this perpetual wheel of motion just kicks in. And I looked at that and started reanalyzing that and saying, well, where's that coming from? What's that doing? And it is that foundation's curse.
Yeah.
And then I went on the journey of how to fix that. And the way that I went about fixing that initially was, GPs are great people. Pop a couple of pills, you'll sleep best tonight. Yeah. And you're like, mate, if that's my world going forward, I don't want to be part of that world.
It's just a bad.
What I forgot to do was to look inwards, to actually start thinking why, and start thinking between the ears about actually what's going on. And so I did some analysis, I did some thought, I did some retreat stuff, and realized it's actually just mental health. And they call it mental for a reason. And the only thing mental in your body is your brain. And to understand what's going on for your brain and actually why your brain at 3 o'clock in the morning is telling you that you're in a car crash, something's not right. So this whole thing about meditation, this whole thing about diet, this whole thing about sleep is actually really, really important. So I bought myself a push bike, and I decided that I wasn't getting enough. I was playing rugby at the time, but rugby's great, but it's very impactful. I needed to actually get some clean air. So bought myself a push bike, and I still love my push bike now. But the other thing I started doing was meditating and getting my body and soul right, and getting that vitality back in to actually eliminate that. So key lesson. If anyone tells you to take a sleeping pill, throw it back at them. Don't ever take it. Secondly, caffeine is not your friend. I love caffeine, but it's there to be enjoyed. It's not there as a drug. And thirdly, everybody has that voice internally. use it at your peril, and don't listen to it at your peril as well. Make sure you've got control of it. It doesn't control you. That is a continuous journey. So that's not something that you can flick a switch and say it's all okay. But for me, I understand my triggers now, and I understand when my sleep's getting eroded, what I need to do to actually get back into that.
Mate, very, very powerful. Ladies and gentlemen, if you're listening, everyone that knows me knows I preach exactly that. And to hear it from you in the way you put it, that is the best advice you'll get. And I've got to say, off air, I actually commented on how good you looked. Remember? And I said, you look good. You look healthy. You look fresh. And, you know, I don't drink caffeine. How many years? Geez, been...
Yeah, wow.
4 or 5 years now that I stopped drinking coffee. I think that time at the hotel, we were sitting there and I said, that's it, I'm not drinking coffee anymore, because I was on 15 a day and I had the founder's curse. So it was before the union. And I just sitting there going, what is going on? And that was the biggest thing. And I drink, 2 or 3 decaf coffees a day because I like the taste of coffee.
Correct.
But I do not touch caffeine. Like I have a Pepsi Max if I'm feeling a bit down on a particular day.
But it's a treat. It's not a drug.
Yeah,
it's not a drug, it's a treat.
And I like I've got a meditation guru, Bronwyn. We do 2 deep sessions a week, like, because I can only do so much on my own.
Yes.
I'm assuming you're the same, like your brain just doesn't. So we're now up to an hour. I can do an hour of deep meditation.
Love it.
I do that 2 times a week at 5 a.m. in the morning. I'm fired up. It just, that mindfulness stuff, you got to make it work for you though. Right? And I always say, I'm an extremist, and you're a bit like that too, Dex. So, we're a bit extreme. When we do something, we do it. I miss riding. I put on way too much weight now to go riding, and I'm fixing that. I'm working on that too. But riding is unbelievably good because that fresh air, when it hits you, and I remember the first time I learned how to ride a push bike with the boys, and for a week I couldn't breathe because the air was so cold in the morning, and I had to get used to that. But I think that there's some really good lessons there. Caffeine is not your friend. Listen to your internal voice. I think they're super powerful. And how you deal with that is, and I love the way you just explained that story, and that now explains to me why you're doing so well in terms of how you look. Obviously, Barb must be pretty happy. She's got a hot husband.
God bless her. She's pretty hot herself.
Yeah, she's good. And she's a great woman too. So,
and I think probably just to add to that, the thing that I reinforce myself every single day is I look at our business and say, I've got 1% of the market. What are the 99% not doing, or what am I not doing for that 99% of that market that they're not on with Wojtek? And that really keeps you sharp. It really keeps you sharp, and it can really drive really great conversations around that.
I think you and I are going to have that chat at some point, because I flip that. I don't actually care anymore about the people that don't come and work with me. I have a real focus on the people I want. Like I now go hunting, and I know you do the same. I will go out and put out content, because that's what I do. I put out content. I put out content that attracts the people I want, right? And that's the switch I've had to flick. I was like, I'm not going to chase people anymore. I'm going to get them to come to me. So I'm going to put out content that the people like me will want to listen to. Then over time, they will listen to it and go, I'm going to make my own judgment on what this guy's really like, right? Not what I see or read or whatever. And then eventually they jump on the call with one of my team, and then my team, because I have the same approach, people first, right? And then my team are a reflection of how we do business. And all of a sudden people are like, so how do I work with this guy? And that's where I flipped the switch, because before, when I used to sit up and worry, well, what about these people that aren't using me? Why are they using someone else? I realized really quickly, everyone's perception of what they want is different. And, but in your line of work, I could imagine there'd be frustration too, because you're like, we offer a better product, we offer a better service, we have it all fully integrated.
Yeah.
Why would you want to stay? I'll say it for you. Why would you want to stay with someone like Telstra, right?
Yeah.
Who you can't speak to a human. Their website is impossible to navigate, right? And I mean, the only thing that I could find that would be a limiting thing for you guys is, businesses are getting smaller, right? And I think this is a challenge. Businesses are getting smaller. People are now working from home. The landline side of the business, right? Now, I know you've got a virtual system, so that's why I'm leading you here. Is that why you created the virtual phone numbers and all of those? Because I had those services with you guys too.
Correct.
Which were brilliant because I didn't actually have to physically have a location. I could just go, okay, Declan, get me a physical number so I can have one.
We've certainly created a habit in market where I'll give you a simple example, right? So I only give my mobile number, so my 04 number, I only give that to my family and my friends.
Yeah.
People that I'm in business with, they receive my 08 number because if I'm not available, I've got amazing people in my business that will look after them. Do you know every single telephone call I receive and probably 90% of the telephone calls I make is actually using my mobile device? Now, be clear with that. It's not a mobile phone. It's a mobile device. So I think the way that we're using telephone systems is radically changing. And we're actually putting that, if you can imagine that big box that was on the desk, that telephone, we're actually wrapping that up into a mobile product and actually putting it in our pockets now. So the example being that I can get off the plane in London or any other country in the world, and as long as I've got an internet connection, I can make and receive 08 telephone calls wherever I am.
That's very powerful.
Now, it's just the same as your email. It doesn't have a geographic boundary. Now, the days have gone where people just go, hey, give me 20 handsets, put a box on the wall. I just need to run my thing and, teach Cheryl out the front. She's the receptionist. She needs to know all of that stuff. It doesn't exist anymore. When COVID hit, and there's lots of stories about COVID, but for me, the excitement of being able to talk to our customers when they said, shit, what do we do about our landlines? We said, just go home. Either take your handsets with you and plug it into your internet at home and it will work, or just activate the app on your mobile device and it will work. Act as if you're at home. Act as if you're at the office, but be at home.
Yeah.
It's such a powerful story that a smaller telecommunications company like ourselves that are nimble can actually turn around. Now, there were other really large telecommunications companies in this country that turned around to their customers and said, no, we can't do anything, just forward it to your mobile.
And that had costs.
Well, one, it had costs, but secondly, the impact on the mobile networks in Australia went up 38% because people weren't just calling mobile to mobile, they're now calling landlines that were diverted onto mobiles, and they were trying to run their business only from their mobile phone. So we actually created a right big mess for ourselves when, if they were up to speed, as smaller telecommunications companies like ourselves are, that say, just take your device home and plug it in, it will work.
Yeah,
it's such a powerful thing that's going on telecommunications right now.
And I think what's really important, though, there is for anyone listening who's got a business who is currently with one of the bigger players.
Yeah.
Don't make the same mistake that people made in the energy market of staying with big players because they think it's safer. The big players are...
We're all on the same platform.
Yeah, but that's right.
We all use NBN.
Yep.
Nobody owns NBN. Well, we own NBN. We're citizens of this country.
Yes,
we all use the same platform of delivery of telecommunications. There is no reason why you're with a big telecommunications company if you're not happy with them.
Yeah, and I think that's a really important message. And I didn't want you to directly say it because you're in the industry, but also me having been heavily involved in the energy industry, where we disrupted the energy industry.
Yeah,
that was what my company did. I'm not talking about the solar stuff. I'm talking about the energy management side of the business, where in 2 or 3 years, we totally disrupted the whole market nationally by going out and saying, why are you with the big guys who are charging you 25% more because of your loyalty? They're taking advantage of your loyalty. And then I would reframe it for some clients who were hesitant and say, you can't be that stupid.
Yeah, I agree.
And everyone always says to me, you're so rude. I'm like, mate, no, you can't be that stupid. Like, I'm telling you, if you moved to this provider, I will do the brokering contract. You're going to save 25%, and it's the same network.
Same product.
SAP own the network.
Yeah,
right?
there's only so many neurons that you can place down this pipe, people. It's crazy. Retailer against distribution.
And your industry is the same. And that, and I think that is got to be frustrating because
it's exciting. No, it's exciting.
I call it frustrating.
I love it.
Right?
Yeah,
you love it because you like to see the opportunity.
But when you see when the customers, there's an amazing customer of mine, a local council here in South Australia, and I said, Gary, why do you love being with Wojtek? And he said, I love being with Wojtek because I don't have to think about you.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Finished. Finished. And it's that whole thing of when you've got a really good cleaner, you don't talk about it.
Yeah.
When you've got a bad cleaner, you tell everyone.
Yeah.
And we are that good cleaner. And I'm grateful for it. Yeah. And we're just, but again, it's about empowering the people. And the people are also our customers to make sure that their experience is great. I see the NPS, the net present score of people like big telcos in this country, they get excited about being 30 and 40%. Ours is over 90. Ours is over 90. And their argument is, well, we're a bigger company, so therefore we can't drive a bigger NPS. Really?
It's because you have zero understanding of your values and your people, and you 100%. Treat them like numbers. That's the problem, right?
And you've nailed that point, Christian, because the products and the services are identical. There is no difference.
And what's
the difference here? People and values.
So, mate, let me give you a really good example, and it might sound a little bit arrogant, but I don't mean it to be. It's just using it as an example. I'm off to Ireland next week, and I booked a car, right? Because I'm flying with Emirates, and because I went on Qantas code share, the Emirates chauffeur service is not available when you land because of some bullshit code sharing rules, ticket price.
Right.
So I went and hired a chauffeur because I've never been to Dublin. It is what it is. I, unlike most people, could have gone to there's 3 or 4 companies that appeared on Google when I searched. All of them are all big players like Uber and chauffeur business. Instead, I spent an extra 5 minutes and looked for the 2 local companies.
Got it.
Right, and you know what? I went with them to support them. I read, and the people I went with had the slightly better website, which didn't have all the errors in it, and I kind of went, okay, I trust that a bit more.
Yeah.
And the service I've already had has been phenomenal. They actually messaged me. And even my EA was like, Christian, how come you didn't get me to do it? I'm like, no, this is something you would have picked the easiest option. Whereas which would have been right anyway. Right now, I paid about €6 more, but it's the same E-Class Mercedes. It's still a bloke wearing a thing. It's still free Wi-Fi on the bloody car. It's still mineral water when I get there. Like, at the end of the day, I didn't care, but I wanted to support someone local.
Yeah, great.
And it paid off on this occasion where the service was really good. I got an extra message. We're going to monitor your flight. So in case you're late, because at the moment, it might take you a little bit longer to come through customs. We'll wait for you. And I thought, you know what? I don't have to worry about it. And
exactly right.
Say, you're a bit precious. You could have, some of my mates who travel a lot, they're like, you're so precious. You could have just, got in a taxi. I'm just like, you know what, mate? There's no way. Like, I don't know the place well enough. In the current market, I don't know how long anything's going to take. And I'm not going into Dublin. I'm going into Nice. So it's a 5-minute drive. I'm thinking, I want to be able to sit down, make some phone calls, catch up on stuff.
And you've also got a local sitting behind the driving wheel telling you all about the place.
Look, most taxi drivers are pretty good like that. Like London ones are amazing. But I thought that too. That was one of their selling points on their website was our drivers are all local and they can actually point out all the scenic places on the way. And I thought,
brilliant.
You know what?
How lovely.
I've been off for work for 3 weeks. I might not get a chance to get a scenic tour.
Correct.
So it might pay off. But I think the point I'm trying to make there is consumers need to wake up that bigger isn't better. And when someone truly cares about their people, that's a good indication of the person you want to do business with. Because it means they're going to care about you, right? And ultimately, that's the most important thing that I believe in business is you people first and then you grow. Mate, I've got another question for you. We are running out of time and I haven't got
go for it.
But what's your biggest failure experience, right? And what did you learn from that?
Yeah, not doing it earlier.
Okay.
Should have done it years ago. No, I think my biggest my biggest failure experience is actually not understanding my financial numbers when I came into small business.
Powerful.
So there's four things: your profit and loss, your general ledger, your accounts payable, your accounts receivable. That's typically the four things that people talk about. Two more: your BAS statement and your IAS statement.
Yeah.
The ATO is not your secondary bank account.
Yeah.
And when your secondary bank account, the ATO, goes into deficit, they don't like it. They're not nice people, and you've got to keep it straight. I learned that really fucking fast, and I dropped the ball on that initially when I actually drove this business and drove it well. I thought about the revenue, and people talk about it, revenue vanity, profit sanity, and all that stuff. When you're not making profit, you've got to have an anchor point, and people always talk about revenue being that anchor point.
Yeah.
And you've got to make sure that one, if you are bootstrapping a business, and a lot of people do, and I'm not saying it's the wrong way to do, if you're bootstrapping a business, make sure that you're really crystal clear on your numbers. And I'd say that coming from a corporate world, it doesn't matter. The biggest thing for a corporate world, and going back to the point you talked about earlier, Christian, they used to call me Sir Lunch a lot because I had the corporate credit card. It was amazing, unbelievable. But when you're looking at
that's
that,
how we met.
Shabam, yeah. When you're looking at your numbers on a daily basis, it's really, really important.
Yeah.
Not to pull you back and not to stifle your ambition, but make sure that you crystallize and understand those numbers really well.
I think I preach a lot about cash flow.
Yep.
The most important financial statement is your cash flow statement.
Correct.
The irony is, I think this year I've already advised about 80, 90 businesses. And before people start, about only 10% actually look at a cash flow statement.
Wow.
We're looking at their profit and loss. And I look at them and I go, why are you sitting down with your accountant looking at your P&L and your cash flow and your balance sheet?
Yeah.
That's history. That's gone.
Yeah.
What's the future position? And if you're not running 3 to 6 months and have at least 3 months of reserve for wages, you're in trouble. And guess what? The next thing I then go and look at is like, okay, show me your integrated client account. And they're like, oh, what are you doing? That's not cash flow, man.
Yeah,
right?
correct.
Like, it's okay and well and good if you're doing it monthly and you're carrying 1 month. But if you're carrying 3, 6, and you're on payment plans, mate, what are you doing?
Not good luck.
Money. And a lot of the time we go and rip the heart out of a business and we find that there is a lot of lunches, right? You start, people, especially the elephants, the companies have been around for 15, 20 years who have found the last 2 or 3 years really challenging. Like that's my bread and butter at the moment. I love it because these are really good operators, but they've become so complacent over the years and allowed all of these habits to get in the way. But then when you pull it out, they're like looking and go, did you just find 200 grand? I'm like, yeah.
Yeah, correct.
And we actually
a day, by the way.
No, not a day. 200 grand a year. But you go, it's 200 grand, and we also just employed 2 more people.
Correct.
Which now means we can go out and make more money. Like,
correct.
One company, I obviously remain nameless, within about 3 hours, and their accountant's sitting there looking at me going, I didn't realize you were an accountant. I'm like, mate, I pretty much have a CA in just doing my own businesses because like you, I've made those mistakes. I carried, I thought at one period the ATO was my second bank. I remember at one point having $500,000, right, across 2 or 3 businesses. And I'm like, and then my accountant, right, a really good accountant, new accountant, looked at me and goes, what are you doing? I'm like, it's free money. They were the days where you could actually even get the interest revoked. Yeah, so correct. Really it was free money. And he goes to me, they work out that you're doing that for that reason. You're finished. They'll recall the debt in 30 days, director's penalty, you're done. And guess what happened?
Yeah.
Out of nowhere, hey, you need to repay this. I'm sitting there going, oh shit, I now have a problem. Okay, buy cars, buy this. And it was not like it was, you get caught up in this trap. And I always say to people, if you need it, just pick up the phone and call them. Don't let them ride out, but then have a cash flow plan to get out. And, the best part is, and I say to people all the time, have a good cash flow statement. Right?
Yeah,
look at cash flow 3 months out. Plan for it. In our line of work, like your line of work, a lot of it is subscription-based. right? So you kind of know what you got coming in. And then you go, okay, well, then let me be strategic. What am I going to achieve? Well, we've got XYZ coming in. If we pick up another 10 clients and don't churn anything, then we're going to be able to actually grow. Okay, let's go bring another person to go out on the road, because that's what it comes down to. I mean, the reliability on social media. I was just with another client before this saying, what would you do if digital media just fell out today? Let's say Zuckerberg decided that he had enough billions and would shut down the whole Instagram, Facebook.
Elon Musk turns around and says, Twitter doesn't exist anymore.
But I mean, the thing is, no, but Twitter is still not an aggregator for selling. The reality of it is people have become so dependent on Facebook ads. Yeah, and they're expensive. They're ridiculously priced. And yet they're trying to do this. And as I say to people, if that tomorrow didn't work, and this new generation, there's a younger client doing very, very, very well, right, in e-commerce. And they said to me, I wouldn't have a business. I said, that's where you're wrong.
Yeah, wow.
You're not investing.
You're only just starting.
That's right.
Yeah.
Like, it's an 8-figure business. Like it's big. And because it's e-coms, their mentality is, I can only sell it online. I'm like, what about retail? You could easily go back and retail. You could set referral partnerships, networks, and that's what we're trying to get them to evolve. And they're like, oh my gosh, this is really cool. And I'm like, yeah, but to do that costs money, but that's your redundancy, right?
Correct.
So really cool lesson there. If you could turn back time, okay?
Yeah.
Now, I'm not sure you remember, because you remember you're 75. If you could turn back time and talk to your 18.
Sure. I can sing it to you.
If you could turn back the clock to when you're 18, what would you say to yourself? What have you said to your son? Isaac, what have you said to him?
Back yourself.
Isaac's 18, isn't it? Maybe
Isaac, 18, back yourself, get on the values journey, support people, be good to your mother.
Yeah, good advice. That's very good advice. What's the most important thing that you think you've learned in your life?
Humility.
Yeah. I'm still learning that.
Yeah, still every day.
How many times they've knocked me to the ground, I'm still learning that, right? But it's true. I think humility. I honestly, on that point,
and probably I'll add to that, if I may, vulnerability and being able to stand in that square and actually take all the bullshit masks off and be authentic and say, this is me. And not this is me, put up with me, because that's just the only way it's going to be. But this is me. How can I better myself and allow me to understand your feelings or thoughts about me and what I can do around that? If the listeners haven't realised that Declan's become a Brené Brown fan, he pretty much just quoted at least 3 passages of Brené Brown in that moment, right? I'm assuming you're just going to blame Barb that she's got it on the bedside table and possibly.
You're already there to dream. So no, it's okay. I'm a Brené Brown fan. I love her research. But mate, fast 5 in 5.
Go for it.
Okay?
Yeah.
Because I'm conscious of your time. What makes you feel inspired?
People.
Awesome. What is the best compliment you've ever received?
Thank you.
It's funny. A humble person always pauses on that one. If you could be remembered for one thing, what would it be, mate?
Good guy.
Mm-hmm. Best book recommendation?
George Orwell, 1984.
Okay. And this is a good one for a sales and marketing guy, even though you're really an engineer. If you could have a billboard with anything on it, what would it say and why?
Don't dream it, scheme it. Dreams are made for people without ambition. Work out what the plan is to deliver it.
Execution. I love it. Hey, Declan, is there anything else you want to add today? Because I think we've had a
awesome chat,
conversation, and I miss you, man. I miss you. I've got to say,
same.
It is. I think we've got to organise a wine and something.
I love your style.
Very soon. It's been too long. Honestly, it's like remember I said at the beginning, I measure my friendships based on how I am with someone when I haven't seen them for so long, and it's like it's like we've been speaking every single day. Thank you. It's been an absolute pleasure having you on the show. I want to take this time to actually thank all our listeners. We value you. And we know that there are hundreds and thousands of other podcasts you could be listening to, but you're choosing to listen to this one.
Well done.
We're currently, I think, number 20 in Qatar. I don't know why. All of you listening out in Qatar, thank you. I do have a client in Qatar, so maybe that could be, maybe there's only one person listening in Qatar. I don't think so. But, our reach is global, and I really want to thank all of you that are listening to us. But I want to make sure that you visit the show notes at the end of this and connect with Declan. We're going to make sure that Declan's LinkedIn profile, everyone knows that that's my platform of choice, that Declan is going to be on. We'll have Declan's URL on there. Connect with him. We'll also have Wojtek's page on there. If you have a telecommunications need of any kind, I know that Declan will take your call on the 08 number, and he will also willingly help you, and one of his team will willingly help you understand where you want to be. If you're new to the show because you've come via Declan's avenue, please subscribe, but also change those notification settings, because if you don't, you will miss out, and we don't want you to miss out on future episodes. Declan, once again, mate, thank you so much. I really value your time. Ladies and gentlemen, peace out. Live with purpose. Are you ready to start taking action on your business? Would you like to spend more time with your family? Then call 1300-643-229 and start building momentum right now. I know you're busy. In fact, you are so busy that you don't have time to work on your business or yourself. Often tossing and turning at night, worrying about the how-tos and the cash flow. How on earth can you possibly get off the hamster wheel so that you can take a helicopter view to see where you'll be in 90 days, 1 year, or 3 years from now? In this program, I will take you from sleepless nights to blissful sleep. You'll have more time with your family, and you will have the clarity and direction so you can grow and flourish. Call 1300-643-229 now and start building momentum.